Welcome to another edition of Politics and Right. My name is Egberto, Willies, your host. Today we are honored to have Lulu Friesdat and Bennie Smith with the 501c3, How to Protect the Midterms. Bennie is the state of Tennessee's state election commissioner, and Lulu is the co-founder of of the organization
SMART
Elections. Welcome to Politics and Right.
Oh, thank you so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so kindly for being with us. As we all know, the elections in America over the last maybe 12 years have become suspect, something that we've never thought about before. What's the genesis of your 501c3? Why did you create this 501c3?
So one of the very, very first things that we talk about, we did a training yesterday here at Netroots, and one of the first things that we want people to understand is that this is not so new. People are now very hyped up and aware of this, and that actually the polls are showing that more and more people do not trust the results of the election. It's actually an NBC poll out, and it said that 41% of Harris voters do not believe that Donald Trump was legitimately elected, and 70% of Trump voters do not believe that Biden was legitimately elected. And when you put those stats together, you come up with 53% of voters who participated in the last two election cycles do not have confidence in the results. But if you go back historically, you will find that election controversy and fraud and mistakes and all kinds of really problems with our elections have been there from the beginning. And we talked about this at the training. Even historically, there's a very well-researched paper by Joseph P. Harris, published by a mainstream organization, the Brookings Institution, talking about all of the fraud and corruption in the elections, and that was in the 30s. So it's really important for us. People are very uncomfortable talking about this. They feel stigmatized. They don't want to speak out. But when we start to think about it as something that has existed, but that we just haven't spoken about in the past, that we haven't been educated about, it becomes much more comfortable.
Well, in America, we are perfect. So we can't have bad elections. We can't have bad anything.
Right.
You have to remember that.
It's perfect.
We are perfect. Bennie, were these last elections secure or not?
No, they weren't. But it's been a taboo topic for the longest. I was covered on, I think it was PBS, and they were they followed me around for a day. It was Miles O'Brien, who's a renowned journalist, and they were looking at how we did our election process in Tennessee. And one of the things that they were highlighting in that whole bit was that if you go from the jurisdictions and ask people what they think about their election processes, I even said on that, and I was like, well, it's anybody's guess. Software and hardware, they need to be relegated to a certain place in part of the electoral process. We think that you have to have computers through and through. I'm very much a Luddite. I write code. We were talking about that in the beginning.
Yeah, we do.
And so, unless I know who wrote that code, I really am not.
Because there are back doors everywhere.
There are front doors everywhere.
Holes everywhere.
Okay, so this is one of the things we talked about in the training. There are so many security problems currently, and we highlight just one in the training, and that is a router that is an approved piece of equipment from the Election Assistance Commission. It's made by Cisco. It's the RV340 router, and yet it has been on the site of the National Vulnerability Database since 2022 with a known vulnerability that Cisco actually published, saying that anybody can access that router and get administration privileges, and that it is completely insecure, that the vulnerability cannot even be mitigated in any way, no protection from it. And Cisco is not putting out any patches on it because they have stopped security supporting that piece of equipment since 2022. 3 years out, it's been unprotected and known vulnerable. And yet it is still in the recent list of EAC, U.S. government listed approved equipment. It is listed right there on ES&S, which is used in about at least 60% of the counties.
Now, is that still, you're still using it because you're the state election commissioner. You're still using that in
So I'm not
now you're going to get personal.
I'm not here representing the state of Tennessee. However,
no, I get it. You're right. You're right about that, right?
However, we are in charge of certifying the equipment. So anything that is on the EAC's currently certified list of hardware and software would be something that would be approved at the state level. And so again, like this is such a nonpartisan issue. These issues were long, 2008, 2010, 2000, and they've persisted. They're just more magnified now because the country has reached that feverish pitch of the polarization.
I mean, when you have a population that people claim is 50-50, it's not, but people claim that it's 50-50.
It's not even close.
They actually, it opens the door for, in those gaps, to create, as you know, in software, it's very, very easy to create those problems. So let me ask you this. I asked you when you just came, and I said, are you working on the technical side? You said you're working on all sides.
Now, what do you mean by on the technical side?
Well,
in terms of the, let's talk about the,
I can work at, there could be bugs in a computer that forces elections, or there can be design in systems that induce people to vote the way you want. There are a lot
procedures
of
and policies.
Right.
They're even run the gamut. There are numbers. So you can talk about the front end.
Right. So I think it's important for people to understand conceptually that there are different parts of the election that we want to protect. And historically, especially for progressives and Democrats, all of the emphasis is on what we call the front end of voting. And that is getting people to the polls, making sure they're registered, making sure they're not intimidated. Do they need a ride? Has their registration been purged? All of that. We call that front end, okay? There is also middle and back end of the voting process. The problem with the Democrats and the progressives is that they have this idea that after they cast their vote, it is counted by magical elves.
And that it's
perfect. The amount of technology that is currently in our elections is really almost, I would say, like 90%. So many parts have been digitized. When you go into the polls now, you are going to sign in on an electronic poll book. Then you're going to get a ballot probably. It could possibly be printed out by a ballot on demand printer. There's problems that can happen with that. You could actually be printed out the wrong ballot. And then you're actually even voting for candidates that you're not legally allowed to vote for. Or your ballot could be printed out on a computer. The computer might or might not print what you pick on the touchscreen because the touchscreen might not be calibrated correctly. Or there could be malware running in the computer. And even though it shows you the text and it says that I'm voting for Egberto, right? But in actuality, there's a barcode and the barcode is counted for a different candidate. We've actually seen instances of that happening. We know that has happened. Then it's going to print you a ballot and you're going to take it and you are going to scan it into another computer. And then that computer is going to take a digital picture of the ballot, because it doesn't even count the paper. It counts the digital picture. And then it's going to put it on a flash card, which is also programmable. And, there are problems that can happen there.
So
that's about 40 different handoffs.
So now that's two levels we covered. What's the last level?
Right. That's the middle. Exactly. I see you're with us. Okay, now you're going to go to what we call the back end. Now those flash drives with all of the results on them are going to go into other computer systems, election management systems. The votes are going to be aggregated, and then they're going to be sent out through probably the internet and go to counties.
Like your television screen, you see the scroll.
The media, county websites where, Benny's working. And so you have so many different points where you could just have accidents where things go wrong. Like say that the spreadsheet in the voting machine and the spreadsheet in the election management system get misaligned because you added another candidate and you added it to the spreadsheet on the ballot machine, but on the voting machine, but you forgot to add that candidate on the election management spreadsheet. Now all of your votes from one candidate are going to go to another candidate. It's going to be misaligned, and it's going to go that way all the way down the ballot. The wrong votes are going to go to the candidate. That might not be malware. That might just be a mistake, but we are not doing enough audits, and we do not have enough people in the polling place collecting data to be checking all of these things.
So now you've defined the problem, and now you have a 501c3 that you've created to work with the problem. What does your 501c3 do?
So SMARTelections has been around for about 5 years, and we have a number of different platforms. One is education. That's like talking to you and getting people aware of the problem. But the election protection program is a really big part of what we do. And we've been able to do smaller pilot programs. So for example, in New York City, we ran a pilot program. And the first one we ran in 2021, that was where the mayor, Eric Adams, won the primary, which really placed him to become the mayor. In that primary, which was the very first time we did election protection, we found a polling location where they had almost 700 more ballots scanned than voters who had checked in.
Why?
Well, they never told us. We did 6 public records requests to try to find out, was that just a mistake or was the ballot box actually being stuffed? Did they actually scan in 698 more ballots for a candidate? We could not find out. But we are organized. That was the very first time we did it. Now we really are at the point where when we find mistakes, we go to court. So now in 2024, we found a polling place in this was the New York City primary, and this was a very contested election for the New York Assembly where the son of the chair of the Democratic Party won. And it looked very suspect. There were 16 more ballots that were scanned than voters who signed in, and then a whole slew of other things, like poll workers telling people that they were taking cash under the table in order to tell people to vote for a particular candidate.
So that's just one example.
Right?
Yeah.
So
one
when
example that you found.
But we took that to court. So now we are at the point where we are organized and we understand the process and we have protections in place to locate problems and either tell people there's no problems as far as we can tell and we have confidence in this election, or we have located problems and we need to take action.
So you go into different district or different precincts and throughout the country. Do you take a sample of precincts that you're going to go to, or do you? What?
This is the sample man right here. Talk to him.
We look at it all.
Is that what you do?
Yeah, we look at it all. So one of the things that really got a lot of traction was the poll tapes. Many people don't realize that that's like a cash register receipt at a grocery store. And so when I got involved into election integrity,
This 501, yeah.
I was on the other end. I was on the front end where I've written this forecast model that predicts who will walk into the booth. And so a number of candidates came to me. Well, every candidate loses, swears that the election was stolen. There were like 9 in Memphis that came to me. And so I'm a software developer. So just out of respect for them, I said, I'll take a look at it. And so I found some really disturbing stuff of how the computers work and how they operate. It's all bad. It really needs to be replaced. But through that study, I was just trying to track, all of these pieces of these handoffs from software to hardware to software to hardware. And I took a picture of a poll tape, and it was a literal photocopy of what they posted in the window at 7 p.m. at the end of the election. It was 548 people who had participated. But when it hit the election management system and was put out for certification, those 548 votes was 330. And so there is just no way to get there in addition, right? You got to do subtraction or division. And so Bloomberg.
And you said that fast, but so people should really understand this. The poll tape, when you're in the polling location.
We understand
that.
That's that is common practice. That is common practice.
Okay.
Yeah, you take a picture of the thing and then you have the back end.
That's supposed to be exact.
Yeah.
Now you're missing 30% of your votes.
Oh yeah, I get that.
Bloomberg got a hold of that, and they came down. They did a investigation, and they investigated it, and that caused our election administrator to retire. And
we're in an interview, sweetheart.
They caused the election commissioner to have to retire. They let him retire. And so they published a national story about this poll tape. It's so significant. Nobody has ever caught it that close on record to realize that you cannot do that in addition, right? And so it really, and I got pushed to the national stage after that. And so that put me into the election security realm. And so we have tried to replicate that across other jurisdictions where you take a picture of the poll tape and just try to enshrine what was committed to the record. None really ever gets committed to the record,
right? Unless
you're at that polling place.
Right. Let me ask this specifically then. Are you saying then that the way you all operate, again, what I'm trying to gather from the 501c3 is what is a procedure that you are using to secure elections?
She's training. We're creating apparatuses and concepts and methods of practice, best practices, and then anyone who wants to get involved in policing our republic, because that's really what we need to do, that this organization is training them.
So when somebody invests in your 501c3, they're investing in securing elections all over the country.
Absolutely.
And the way that is going to be done as with teaching, etc.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. The way that will be done with teaching, etc., is that you will be sampling into different precincts as well.
Yes.
What is actually
even further than that, lawsuits.
But let's be very specific. So the first step of it is that we have to collaborate with organizations all over the country, and we work with people across the political spectrum. We are nonpartisan. We work with progressives, with conservatives, with libertarians, green, everybody. We want everybody. And especially we need organizations. So we've connected with a number of organizations here, like State Voices. We met the organizers here, and they have 1,200 organizations they're working with. And we also work with Andrea Miller at Center for Common Ground. And she has people in at least 18 states now.
Have you worked with Greg Palast at all?
Yes.
So, yeah, but Greg focuses on something different. Greg is really focusing on the front end. He's focusing on voter suppression. Yeah. And there is a lot of emphasis on voter suppression. It's very important. But we are focused on the part that has not been covered yet. So we're collaborating with those organizations. And then once we get their members motivated and excited, then we have training sessions. We teach them how they have to get a certificate in most states. So we have to know the rules in all 50 states.
Right.
What is a poll watcher allowed to do? What type of certification do they need? We train them to go into the polling place and collect data. This is one of the things that's been missing from election protection is the collection of data. How many people signed into the electronic poll book? How many people actually scanned a ballot? How many ballots are scanned? Are they the same? They're supposed to be the same. If those numbers aren't the same, that is your first red flag. And then if you take a picture of the poll tape and you check whether or not the election results that are published match that, and they don't, that's another red flag, right? So we're actually training people and getting them to understand how their elections work, and then they start to understand how they can find out if they're not working correctly. And the best part of it is that a lot of it is preventative. If people are there on the ground, observing, in place, watching, then there is less opportunity for somebody's not going to go in there and start messing with things when people are there and watching and paying attention.
So what are you doing for 2025 November? You put in people in, let's say, Virginia and New Jersey?
We are focused on 2 races. We are focused on, there's a number of races in Virginia that are competitive. And in November, the mayor's race in New York City. Those are the 2 that we're going to be rolling out election protection. And part of that is, again, another sort of scaling up a larger pilot program. And then also we've got our state and regional teams that are moving into place now. It takes a while to get people motivated, to understand, train.
Well, this is, it's not a sexy subject. It's a boring subject.
Oh my God.
So I mean, unfortunately, it is an important and serious subject, but it's not a sexy subject, and you guys have to make it that way.
Yeah.
You guys have to find a way to show the importance of what you're doing, and that's the reason. Sometimes I come with some pressured answers. It's like, how are you going to get the attention of people? People get mad at the end of the election, but all the processes that gets involved, they're not very concerned about that. You, as a 501c3, taking money from people saying we need to do this, it is your job to actually make it sexy for all of us to actually want to do it.
I always say passion is not a substitute for skill. And so
Say that again?
Passion is not a substitute for skill.
No, it's not.
And so what happens is after those elections, you have these really passionate groups, they rise up. And we did a show. We did like a show.
Yeah.
We did lots of education and training.
We did a forum for 3.5 years.
Lots of education and training where we're explaining what these things are. And so our job at SMARTelections, where I'm a technical advisor, is to disseminate as much information as possible.
That's why you're here. That's why you're here. And let me tell you what, the work that you guys are doing is very important work. It's very serious work. I remain with the statement: you got to make it sexy to get it out there.
If anybody saw like we are laughing. It's really hard to make these dense subjects palatable for long stretches of time, and so we try to make it so. We even entertain while we're doing it, so that I'll catch her every now and then.
But you know what? You're right. But it's your job to do it.
It is.
Absolutely.
It is.
And we enjoy doing that. And one of the things, it's just, we have a great team now. We have so many people after the 2024 election.
Not only that, you also have a great speaker in Lulu.
Yes.
You are, you are a great promoter of this. Look, we got to get out of here. So give me a closer.
That'd be great. We would love for people to go to our website, this SMARTelections.us, and there's a lot of information there. There's actually a link where you can click and fill out a Google form that you want to get involved in election protection. So please do fill that out. Sign up for our Substack. If you want to see sexy information about this, that Substack, there is a lot of stuff on there that tells you actual things that you have never thought about before, problems with the elections that you will want to know about. And I will encourage people to donate. We estimate that we need to raise $500,000 in order to really do the most comprehensive, robust, data-based election protection in U.S. history for the 2026 midterms. And we absolutely encourage people to donate. It is tax deductible.
Lulu and Bennie, thank you very much for the work that you guys are doing. It's important work, and you are making sure that our freedom remains. So thank you so kindly. And I don't say that short. I don't say that facetiously. Thank you for what you guys are doing.
All right.
What a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
It was ideal. Thank you.
All of our country's problems, from polarization to ignorance on domestic and international issues to a complete misunderstanding of our economic and healthcare systems, are a direct result of a derelict mainstream media that too often bend over backwards to support corporate or bought politicians' wants as opposed to the people's needs for real information to make their lives better. Independent media is the only solution to inform truthfully and factually. Why? Because our loyalties are to you, the ones who fund us with small dollar contributions and subscriptions. Please consider supporting our independent media platforms by subscribing to our Egberto Off the Record newsletter at politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Again, that is politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. It's an investment that pays incalculable dividends.